Hi, everyone. Hello. Good to see you. Happy New Year again. So this is my first tour of the year. So my first tour in 2026, which is impressive, right? 2026 already. Thank you so much for joining me. I know for some of you, it's one of the last days before things get back to normal. And yes, Shabbat Shalom as well. Actually, here, Shabbat is almost over. No, actually, it's over. Yeah. But anyway, I hope you're having a great time, great weekend, and thank you so much for finding time to join me. And yeah, wishing everyone best of luck and a good year. Yes, hi, Dorley, on a version 2026, exactly. So I thought to start this off in the beautiful setting, meaning next to my gorgeous Christmas tree. The thing is, this is probably one of the most awkward Christmas trees that I saw in the market when we were shopping for the tree. Since my Grisha is not here, I can actually say you why we got this one. Grisha liked it very much, and but I liked a slightly bigger one and a slightly fluffier one. But he liked this one so much because he told me nobody would ever buy this one because these branches are missing. And I felt so sorry for this Christmas tree that we actually bought this one. So I know like this really gets on my nerves. Like there's something really missing here, you know? But yeah, we probably saved this tree from just being totally neglected. So and yeah, Grisha really touched my heart when he said that. So yeah. So let's give it another like. It's a lovely Christmas tree and it's really sparkly. So I think it's a good setting to start this tour off with a tour of St. Petersburg. And this is a very special tour. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Joanne, good to see you. Drisha is very kind. Yes, indeed. So, this tour is a special one, not only because it's the first tour of the year, but it's also because it's one of those tours that I was supposed to take you on, like in a live stream mode in St. Petersburg back in 2022. He is a sweetheart indeed. So, um, and the video was made up of two films. One of the videos was filmed in the end of no, I think it was early January. It's either the end of December 2021 or early January 2022. You'll see there was a Christmas tree there. So that's why I thought it will be also a good idea to do this for exactly now, while kind of it's still fresh and it's still holidays. And the other video was filmed by Misha back in summer 2025 when he went to St. Petersburg for 2 weeks to do the paperwork, the absolutely essential one. And one of the first places I asked him to go and film was exactly this house, was exactly that apartment. So um, I'm kind of trying to make up for the places I was not able to take you in St. Petersburg. I just imagine, I know it would have been an amazing tour with a lot of interaction, with a lot of audience, because this is something absolutely special. It's kind of actually two tours in one. Not only are we going to explore the 1905 apartment in the beautiful building, newly restored. Not only are we going to see the old interiors, almost untouched by the, I would say, um, very complex and intense 20th century, including the Soviet period, I mean, the revolution, including the Civil War, including the Second World War and the bombardment. You probably remember from my tours that it was almost 150,000 bombs that was thrown on Leningrad, and yet that apartment and that house survived. And it was one of the most expensive real estate objects in the entire city back when it was built. So not only that, but also we are going to sneak, which kind of it's a bonus. I wasn't planning to do that, but we're also going to have a sneak peek into one of the communal apartments that still exists in St. Petersburg in this very house. So we're going to visit an apartment with all interiors. And in the end, Happy New Year, Adrian. We are also going to enjoy the visit. Well, maybe enjoy is not really the best word, but we are at least going to enjoy the hospitality of a friend of mine who showed me around back in either December 2021 or January 2022. Again, I do not remember, but that was around the holidays, and I was supposed to take you there in March. But as you know, in February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and I would say my focus kind of shifted, and I thought it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to take you there. I wasn't exactly in the mood, and so on and so forth. Before we get down to the tour, also let me share with you some links. I'm taking it slow, kind of. Instead of 8 tours, I'm only taking you on 6 tours this weekend. But those are going to be meaningful tours and 2 premieres. Give me a second. I think I'm missing some tours here. Yes. So in 1 hour after we are done with this apartment, I'm taking you to Tbilisi, to the Palace of Oldenburg, which were related to the Romanovs, if you remember. And then in 1 hour after that, we're going to the Fabergé Museum. Tomorrow, it's going to be 3 tours as well. Another premiere after the English embankment tours. I'm taking you to the English Avenue of St. Petersburg and some stories of a royal style. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. I don't know, honestly, like this missing branches are really, really just yelling at me, but it's okay. I'll just try not to see that. But it's also lovely that makes this tree special. So okay, let it be it. Okay, so and then after tomorrow's premiere, Misha is going to give a talk about Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's going to be 2 chapters. Well, the first chapter is tomorrow. As you know, Misha has been doing this series of tours on Russian literature, starting from the 18th century. So now it's Dostoevsky finally. And then I'm taking you to Jerusalem to one more tour of the Temple Mount and around the Temple Mount. Yeah, so I think it's kind of a nice program. So let me switch off the chat and get down to the tour. Okay. Okay, so this is the street we actually have never walked in St. Petersburg. It's one of those tours I was planning to take. It's one of those streets I was planning to take you on a number of walks. But anyway, it is what it is. It's called the Kirochная Street. It's because of a kirche, because of a church, a Lutheran church, which we actually visited for one of the New Year tours. It's the Saint Anne Church that we visited and that I cried in. But that's just the church that gave the name to this very long street. It's about a mile long, even more than that. But this is the house we're going to visit. It's called Bak House because the landowner, the proprietor was the Julius Bak. That's him, Yuli Bak, Julian Bak. He was a Jew. He came from the south of Russia, territory of Ukraine, Russian Empire. I mean, that's where most Jews would be coming from back in the days. And he was one of those Jews who, well, after the emancipation of slavery in the Russian Empire, also managed to grow great wealth. And he started off as just the assistant engineer during the period of rapid growth of the railroad construction. And starting from very small investment, he actually became one of the richest people in the city. And he began in his city and in the governorate. And that's how, after becoming a merchant of a certain guild, he was able to come to St. Petersburg. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to do that because of the still very strict rules of the Pales of Settlement. So, but he was also an engineer. He wasn't just an investor, he was an engineer. And he was one of the authors of one of the, I would say, founding fathers of this house. He was one of the people who was also behind the entire interior ideas. And he was an engineer. That's why he made sure this house would have all the most advanced technologies available at that time. And also in his free time, he supported a lot of Jewish organizations. He donated loads of money to the construction of the synagogue as well and the community. And he also, with his side hustle, published a newspaper called Rich or Speech. And it was, I would say, quite a progressive newspaper, by the way. And this newspaper would be released even after his death. The sad thing is that he committed suicide in 1908. Nobody really understands why, because it wasn't really a difficult year. Well, the 1905 revolution had already been over, and things were actually looking up also for Jews because of a lot of I would say restrictions lifted off regarding the Jews and the Jewish life and the Jewish faith in the city. Well, nevertheless, he committed suicide, but the newspaper would be released up until 1918. The architect who was in charge of the whole building was Boris Gershovich. He was also a Jew. And we spoke about Gershovich when I took you to the tour of the Jewish cemetery on Halloween. Yeah, I know. But that wasn't because of the Halloween. I mean, that was cemetery. That's why it was Halloween. It was the Hamid cemetery tour. But yeah, I mentioned Gershovich because he was one of the Jews buried in that cemetery. That's what this house looked in 1920s and 1930s. And this house was one of the, as I said, one of the most expensive ones. And here lived people of different walks of life. It was a big house. Was the tenant house. And for example, I was able to find this photo taken in 1911, so before the revolution, and we see a certain Prince Dmitry Repnin, of course, Dmitry Repnin, in his own car, right, with some friends, and Repnin indeed lived in this house. So princes, starting from princes and ministers till very common people lived in this house. I would say not I would say average, but people at least who had some money. But yes, this house welcomed quite a diverse people of the city. We will talk about it, and because today we're also going to visit the former glorious apartment and also the communal one that is clearly less, I would say clearly more modest in its decoration. And you can see also that the facade, the doors, well, the facade looks different now because there's no this porch anymore. It's the new one. The old one was dismantled at some point in the Soviet period, and this is, I would say, a good example of Art Nouveau. The building was finished in 1905, and as I said, this house got the most advanced technologies available at that time. So probably even um, because Yuli Bak was an engineer himself, he probably also experimented a lot because it was his house. Anyway, that's me. You see, I still have the mask on because in 2021, 2022, we were kind of a bit on the fence, right? We didn't really have that strict law anymore, but because I was attending the public tour, I put the mask on. Anyway, so that's the house. And what is an income house, right? Once again, since this video may also be watched by someone who hasn't watched any of my tours before, I need to explain. It was very difficult to buy property, to buy land or an apartment in St. Petersburg because it was the capital city, and it was overpopulated and the land was overpriced. always, has always been. So it was almost impossible to buy anything. And most people, like 97% of the city, basically rented from the 3%, something like that. And anyone who wanted to, well, earn something from, well, invest into something, the first thing would be not Google, not oil companies, but the land. That was the first thing to do. And that's exactly what Julian Bak did, the landowner. He bought the land. Obviously, he took a loan, but it was okay. The interest rate was okay. It was humane. It was totally worthwhile. It was totally legit, and it was a very reliable scheme. So people took a loan and started building that tenant house. And within from 10 to 15 years, all the money, all the investment would be paid off and people would be able to live off just one building. So it was a good scheme. It was a good plan. And technically speaking, in 1905, there were still 12 years to go. So, well, before the revolution, but obviously they didn't know that. And that's how people lived. People just rented from him. And the more expensive, the better location is, the higher would be the rent. And uh, obviously every square meter of land mattered. And as you know, the life in St. Petersburg actually is behind the facade, it's in the courtyard. And we're looking at one of the most unusual courtyards of St. Petersburg because of this interesting um, um, corridors, flying arches, connections, right, between the sides of the building. Actually, these ones are the first that would be the first to be used in the city. Since Uli Bach was an engineer, railroad engineer, he actually used the technology from their railroads to build these metal frames. So 1905, Art Nouveau, right, the combination of the state-of-the-art technologies and I would say local materials. So he took the technology of the metal frames for railroads, and he designed these connections, these corridors, and that was a game changer. This kind of the flying connections, arches, they connected the parts of the building that were distant from each other and saved a lot of time also to the people who lived in let's say in the deeper in the further parts of the building. And uh, also, it's important to understand that if your windows, let's say, well, we know what a lobby is, the notion of a lobby. Well, you judge the book by the cover. So expensive lobby with a concierge, with beautiful interiors and the stove or fireplace. That was obviously that was something that added something, right? Some money, and up the price, for the rent. But if you live in a modest building, or let's say if your windows actually don't overlook the city, or your windows overlook somebody else's windows, that's absolutely cheaper, right? So what Ulibag did, he made sure that everyone who lived in the further parts of the building, right? So further from the avenue, from the street, they would enter from the main entrance as well, through the main lobby, and then use the elevators, the same elevators, and would use the same staircases. So technically, they entered the same posh way that people who lived in bigger apartments, people who lived in the front uh, part of the building. So that was clever. That was absolutely clever. An interesting thing here, St. Petersburg is about the courtyards, and the courtyards sometimes are very puzzling. It's interesting here that if you look at this on the road, you will see a railing, right? So Julius Bach, he was an engineer, railroad engineer. So he made sure that all the carriages, because at that point it was still the carriages. The cars were very well, there were just very few cars in the city, and it was mostly the carriages. So he made sure that the carriages, well, the horse-driven carriages, would not really hit the walls of the building, and they would use the railing. Huh? That was very clever. So the walls were intact. And this is a very classical St. Petersburg building, right? So St. Petersburg view, a well-shaped courtyard, right? And there is no exit from it. Yeah. So technically speaking, this is the furthest part. This is the end of the building. This is the Brand Mauer wall, the wall of the previous building, of the next building. And that's a thick wall, Brand Mauer, to ensure fire safety. Yeah, so technically speaking, walls of the windows of the people who lived in this building, they overlooked either the wall or the windows of their neighbors. Yeah, they played less, but because of this interesting, fancy idea of how people enter the building, well, they still paid quite a lot compared to buildings around it. The facade of the building, as you may have noticed, have been restored quite recently. It was restored about 5 years ago, maybe, and the condition of the building is very good. The elements, the tiles. So this is Metlach tile. You know, I'm a big tile fan, and my phone has about gazillion of photographs of tiles from all over the world that I took, and I was able to find some photos of the tiles, and there are a lot of tiles that survived. So this is the lobby, and there is a modern elevator now, but they used to have, well, one of the first elevators in the city was installed in this building. The old elevator is gone in the Soviet period, but well, the modern one is there, kind of in the in place of the old one. And the doors, this is already since in I would say half of the apartments in the building, they are already private property, and technically speaking, it should be the owners in charge of the restoration of the doors. And a part of the building still has the communal apartments, and they cannot decide who should restore the doors. Some doors have been restored, some not yet. So we'll see. And when Misha was there this summer in 2025, last year, he also said that some doors are in pretty bad condition. In the building, however, the community of the people who lived in this building, they actually have the social network page of the house, and there are tours held there on a regular basis, but not too often, like once a month. And they make sure that the money earned from the tours, they go to the fund that well, mm, and the money earned from the tours, they normally go for all sorts of restoration. So the city restored the facade, the roof, the lobby, but well, not all the lobbies have been restored. So it's kind of a, I would say, even when I and Misha visited, we also contributed to the upkeeping of the building. It looks lovely even now. I mean, the entrance, right, everything, but it was way lovelier back in 1905, believe me. So we are now inside those flying archways, the connections between the two buildings, and you see also a lot of beautiful stained glasses. Well, there used to be a lot more of the stained glass. They say that even in these doors, so these doors take you to this corridors, to this uh, connections. Even the doors used to have stained glass. Right now, it's just the ordinary glass. So just imagine how opulent the building used to be when Well, when we see the apartment, I think it will also kind of be clear. So technically speaking, the lobby is in a good condition. Yeah, okay. Some paint is chipping off, some plaster is chipping off, but it's well, it's not that bad, and it's only a matter of time for them to restore the galleries. That's just it. And from here, we can see the courtyard as well. So all these pictures of me were taken back in 2021, 2022. And there are two archways. I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure which one of them I was. Well, the photos were taken. There you go. And if we go back and we go upstairs, so we will actually reach the apartment itself. So I think you can see um, where my love of lobbies come from. Yeah. And yeah, so that Christmas tree was there. So again, that's why I don't remember when exactly the video was, when exactly I was there to film it. I was allowed to film. We were discussing the all the details, all the nitty-gritty of how a virtual tour would go. It was supposed to be like 2 hour virtual tour with a well with an interview with the people who own the apartment, with a friend of mine who lives in the communal apartment. It was supposed to be a big tour, like I used to do a lot of them back in the day. So, and this gallery, by the way, it's safe to walk there. Normally, it is closed, but someone has a key, and well, technically speaking, it can be used as a balcony during the warm time of the year. Well, somebody placed a Christmas tree there, so. But I wasn't really on that balcony myself. I've never been there. So the ironwork is still there, and so in that shaft for the elevator, well, the modern one is. So I'm not sure what happened. Nobody knows what happened to the original elevator. It was pretty big, and here in these niches used to be the paintings. You see, they're all used to be paintings, and it wasn't this a whitish beige color of the walls. They used to look very different, but it's okay. I mean, I think it's better than nothing. So as you can see, some doors are fine, some doors are not, and it's up to the owners to decide what to do with the doors. I mean, whether you restore it or not. And yes, so the stained glass. You may remember from my tours of St. Petersburg that uh, let me pause here because it's going to be an interesting announcement. So here they are asking people not to stand on the windowsill. And they say if the architect Boris Gershovich um, could have offered something suitable for standing on the windowsills, uh, he would have never put any windowsills anywhere in the building. So something like that. That's just, I guess, so you can see how people care for the building. And yeah, there's always a surveillance. There's always person in charge, and they're like on duty every day. They make sure it's clean. They make sure the doors are closed so random tourists do not enter without permission. And yes, in Russian network, social network vk.com, the house has a page, and quite a lot of people, by the way, follow their activity. There used to be uh, some fundraiser as well. So yeah, I guess this is like a kind of a common cause for people who live in the house, and they want to protect it and they want to save it. And by the way, this plate with the numbers, it's it's made from it's ceramic, and it's original, and it has always been here. So we are going to visit the apartment number 3. So some of these videos were filmed by me, some of these videos were filmed by Misha. So there is a gap of 3 years or so. And as we enter, so it's a private apartment now, and I will explain while we are there. So while we're in the room, I will explain how things are because obviously the apartment didn't look like this when it was built more than a century ago, 120 years ago. It didn't look like this, but well, this is the part of the uh, apartment that looks modern in a way. Margaret, thank you so much for your tips. So there is, I would say, little furniture, still some New Year decorations, again, because that's around New Year when I was there. And you see the windows. So these windows overlooking the inner yard from, well, there's also a balcony, by the way, quite a big one, as you can see. So that's the view exactly from the balcony. So you see the balcony. Yeah. And I mean, you just have to get used to it. Yes, your windows in most cases most likely are most likely to overlook your neighbors. And it is what it is. What can I say? And it's still one of the most expensive buildings in the city, by the way, because it's been restored and upkept, and it's pretty in a pretty good condition, I would say, in a pretty good condition. Well, chipping paint is not really a big deal. So you see, that's the door, and you can enter that small balcony. And technically speaking, you can approach the tree as well, but as far as I understand, they keep it closed just, I guess, because of the children or tourists. I'm not sure. But technically speaking, yes, that also can be used. So welcome to the apartment. So this is the historic part of the apartment, and it used to be 4 times as big. No, not 4 times as big. The entire apartment was maybe okay, more than 10 times as big, I would say, altogether. Just imagine. So it's just one room. And now it's the biggest room in the entire apartment. So I've provided some numbers here. So 800 meters, 800 square meters, or can you imagine eight, uh, more than 8,500 square feet, the area of the apartment. Just imagine the apartment had like 10 rooms, if I'm not mistaken, and it was just one of the rooms in the apartment. And right now, the entire apartment is only 40, well, actually, it's not 41, I was a little wrong, like 45 square meters. So like 450 square feet. That's just it. Imagine. So this is the result of the уплотнение, right? So уплотнение, basically this is the process that started after the revolution. So after 1917, when the Bolsheviks seized the power, they nationalized the apartments from the landowners, from the people who owned the apartments, and they split them into smaller apartments and gave them to the families of the workers, right? So normally a room for a family, just like that. And then after the perestroika, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the privatization of the property became possible, and so several of these rooms were privatized by one family, and they sold it, someone else purchased it, and Archil, who used to live in this apartment, as far as I understand, Archil left. Um, they sold the apartment and left Russia in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so this, I'm not even sure who this place belongs to at the moment. And in this room, since it has preserved the original decoration, so they turned it into a museum. They could have they could have done whatever they wanted because it's their property, but they decided to leave it as it is, and that's how we can enjoy what we see. So let's first of all have a look around, and I want to draw your attention to this interesting milk stained glass design. It was found in one of the doors, the the doors in the apartment, like between the rooms, and it was covered with the paint. They just painted it the same horrible color, like beige, white, or yellow. I'm not sure, like the Soviet kind of paint, and that was it. They just painted it over, and then it was discovered. And the family who owned the apartment decided to clean it and restore it. And now they place that stained glass, they put it in the frame and place it as one of the exhibits. And there's still a name. This is the name of the workshop engraved on it. It says Anahovich. Well, it's in Russian with the old orthography. It's cracked, but it's there. The fireplace is original. However, next to the fireplace, there is now a wall, but actually was the continuation of the room, but not anymore. And here from this side, so this is the opposite side, opposite wall. And well, though that wall was not there, you see the wall now next to the column with some paintings, some artworks. So that wall wasn't there. The room would go from the left and to the right. It was like one really, really big room. It was a kind of a dance room, like a dance hall. Uh, well, yeah, and also you can see the the soaring cheers. That was the idea of Archil. They discovered these cheers, so they were in the apartment, and they decided to keep it as museum exhibits because they come from a very interesting furniture workshop. They're old cheers. They're more than 120 years old, and technically speaking, almost everything in this apartment is a museum exhibit. So I think it's a good idea. And also the doors. Well, I'm not sure if the doors are ever going to be restored, but for now, it is what it is. Well, the ceiling decoration, yeah. So um, this is the advertisement from the newspaper of this furniture factory, Bratya Tonet. And Bratya Tonet, they were kind of so their furniture workshop, it was kind of the IKEA of the time because you could assemble your chairs the way you wanted. You could just pick legs of this style, this type of a seat, this type of a back. Well, I don't know, you could turn it into an armchair. They had like transformer chairs too with or without support, with whatever details, and they also had the different upholstery that you could change from time to time. So they had shops in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in Odessa, in Warsaw, and in Kiev. Yeah. So the Tonet furniture factory. Yeah. And Wojciechov is this is just also from one of the from the newspaper. It's an ad from one of the newspapers. So you see one and the same chair could have very different design, and it was all up to you. You could customize it the way you wanted. And that's what the chairs look nowadays. What can I say? I mean, it's a museum exhibit, nobody's sitting on them, but these chairs have survived. In most cases, old wooden furniture perished because of the Second World War. There wasn't a central heating, there was nothing, right? And the wooden furniture would be the first one to use just to warm up. That was it. So to have, even in such condition, to have wooden furniture from that times is pretty amazing. And this is the gramophone, by the way, in very good condition. The original one recently restored, and I was there to listen to it. So I'm not sure whether they turned it on for Misha when he was there, but I was able to film it, and I really, really enjoyed the way it sounds. So, and I think the video should be coming soon. I think so. I'm not sure if it's the original vinyl, but the gramophone, that's for sure. Uh, well, there's definitely the video coming. I filmed it so back in 2022, and also the uh, on the walls we will see a lot of photographs, a lot of illustrations, and the blueprints. So this is all the result of the kind of a bit of a detective work, the work in the archives, because for the family who used to own this apartment when I was there, so Archil is well one of the members of this family. They went to the archives. They spent their own time and money. They invested everything and also their heart into the history of this house and also this very apartment. And we'll be able to learn a little bit more about the people who lived in this apartment, about the people who, um, well, also lived in the entire building. Okay, I think the video is coming. Just a short video that I filmed with the gramophone. And yes, so this is at least the package of the vinyl. It says Ageva alla Ageva. It's well, just a music piece, some string instruments, and balalaika and violin. We should have it now. I was planning to make it a reel, and share and promote it on my socials when we actually almost agreed on the date for the tour. But yeah, anyway, so the balcony. And interesting, I would like to draw your attention to a little door. In the door, there's a smaller door that's important for the work of the fireplace. And also pay attention to the the handles and the opening mechanisms of the door. It's the original mechanism, the original latch, which was a vertical latch, and it locked vertically. Not There are not so many apartments that have preserved this mechanism, and it's the original one. That's the view from the balcony. A little bit of snow. It wasn't really a snowy winter, I would say. And yeah, so that I also asked Misha to pay attention to the latch. And it's great to see that not much really has changed in those several years that I wasn't there. And looks like the new owner basically carries on with the tours and the activity. So once again, that's how the house looks. And we are now on the third floor. Well, or let's say for those who well, in the States, we're like on the second floor. So the ground floor, as usual for these type of buildings, would be for different businesses. And then we are on the second floor in the one of the biggest apartments in one of the biggest apartments. So normally it would be like that. Tenant houses or these income houses, the apartments on the second and the third floor, or, well, or the no, the or the first and the second floor, they would be the most expensive ones. Especially that applied to the houses that didn't have an elevator, because the elevators would be still quite a rare thing up until like 1910. It would be pretty rare, like 1917, 1907, 1907. And that's why the higher the apartments were, the least expensive they would be. And we are now located in so you see this two part, the kind of stand out in the center of the building, we are in the right part of it. We are in the right side of it. And if you take a look at this blueprint, which is a pink print, but it's okay. So this is how big this apartment was. More than 800 square meters. I mean it. Just imagine. Yeah. And after the revolution, this apartment was divided into three apartments, and um, well, this is just the layout, the blueprint that it looks nowadays to the three apartments. But before, in the Soviet times, each room in each of these three apartments would be given to a separate family. So imagine how many people lived there. Just imagine. Yes, and so all these old photographs, the illustrations. This is the work of this investigation, and also the ceiling. You may have noticed that the height of the ceiling was almost 5 meters. And what was done in the Soviet period, they kind of made a floor, um, an upper floor in the room, and it's I would say fully fledged room with a lower ceiling. This is where you can just have a seat, chill, and watch a film about the apartment. Yeah, so as I said, these columns, well, they are original. This photo is placed next to the fireplace on the opposite wall. So you see there is a door. So in fact, this photo was was taken from somewhere behind the columns, right? So you see these columns here. So these are the columns. So one of these columns, the right one, is where I'm sitting in the previous photo, right? Let me show it to you once again. And did I say that we are destined to overrun a little? So if I didn't, now I am saying. So we are going to overrun, but that's okay because there is a gap, between before the next door. So you see this column. So this column is in that photo, the one to the right, and the photo was taken somewhere in there was still a room there. That wall was from the Soviet period, but it was a big ballroom, and this photo was taken from somewhere, right? And you see the fireplace, right, with the mirror. So there is a door. Now the door is sealed, and there is another apartment there now. But the door kind of is still there, but it's sealed. It doesn't even look like a door. This is the original mirror. So Misha filmed it. It's the original mirror restored, but the original. You could see an amalgam there. And the fireplace is still functioning. They switched on the fireplace for us when I was there. It was winter, so when Misha was there, they did not really because there was no need to switch it on. But when I was there back in 2021, 2022, it worked. And that small door in the balcony door was for the air that is so essential for the work of the fireplace. That was it. Incredible. Just incredible. Yeah, and you see that there was a kind of a little bit of a fire in the Soviet period. So when one of the pieces of the wood fell off, and well, the apartment could have been burned. But it didn't, just a little bit of the floor next to the fireplace. Oh, and yes, this is the apple cake that was baked for us when we were there on a tour. And it would have been baked for us even for a virtual tour. Believe it or not, I really wanted to have a tea with you and the cake. I like this experience and I like to eat. So, apple cake is always a good idea. So it's such a shame that didn't work out. Yeah. So, but it kind of still worked out because Misha was there to film for us, and now we just put it all together. This is the details of the fireplace. So this is how you can open the ventilation for the air, and everything is still functioning. It's in a very good condition, and it's the original. So this is the monogram of the company that made the stove, well, the fireplace. And yeah, so also what I like, I took tons of selfies in that mirror, and I wasn't the only one. There was a line of girls well, that wanted to do that. So they just put here different items. So the bonbonnières, so the packages of sweets and other stuff, some old watch, some old newspapers and journals. Well, I mean, just imagine how many selfies were taken next to this 19th century mirror. Just imagine. And that's that detail in the left corner. This is an old lamp. Well, it runs with electricity, but it's an old lamp, and well, it's just kind of what was left of it. Yeah. Now, if you take a look at this, well, you see the details, like the big metal rods. Actually, these are the elements that would be used to lock the windows. So they are parts of that vertical locks on the windows that were preserved, well, at some point, and just, well, they're kind of museum exhibits now. So who lived in this very apartment? So Archil was able to find out that in this very apartment lived Pavel Gukasov. Actually, he was Pavel Gukasyan, an Armenian-born um, oil magnate. He was one of the 30 richest people in the country. Had there been Forbes back in the end of the 19th century, Gukasov would be there in this top 30. Trust me. And Gukasov owned some oil refineries in Batumi. He owned the not wine, oil mine in Azerbaijan, in Baku, well, in Azerbaijan. And he also had several houses in Tbilisi, and I did show you a couple of them on one of my multiple tours. So this is how everything is all together, like comes together, right? I love these amazing connections, and there will be more tonight, by the way, on the tour of the Oldenburg Palace. Nevertheless, so Gukasyan lived in this house. He had three brothers, by the way, and after the revolution, he was able to flee the country, having lost everything, but still had his dignity with him. Also, the old money, and also, well, like the nails, for example. The image is not very crispy, but so these are the old nails that were discovered somehow during a restoration, and Archil just preserved it, just like that, and also some photos from of this apartment. So this is the wife of Pavel Gukasov in this apartment. It joined herself. I mean, so that used to be a door, but well, you can't really see the door there now. It's all painted over, but there used to be a door. This is an interesting thing. I remember they asked us like what was this for? And this is the ventilation. I had no idea, but I think it's a common sense, but I had no idea that well, the parquet floor is original. And in order for the parquet floor not to rot and to be in a good condition, it actually has to be a small distance. There has to be some air between the floor and the parquet floor. I had no idea of that. So that's the original ventilation. And even this detail was beautiful. You see, the original parquet floor still there in a very good condition, by the way. But that's also because Archil invested some rubles into the preservation and the restoration of the parquet floor. And this pin over there, originally there used to be carpets. There were rugs everywhere, and this was one of the rugs, well, one of the pins that held the rug on the floor. Well, it's still there. It's still there. Some, well, some old journals. This is, by the way, a journal called Zochi, kind of an architect, and well, Gershovich, Boris Gershovich, the architect of the building. He had by that time he had already built quite a great number of buildings for the Jewish community, for the Jewish schools. So it was only logical for Yuli Bak hire him to do the work. Margarita Aleneva, it's the lady who lived in this house during the siege of Leningrad. She lived in this house, and her family, um, her family lived in this house, and during the siege, she and her family lived in one of these rooms that are now part of this apartment. She passed away not really long ago, and that was her photo. Some of the celebrations in this house, and her um, her granddaughter was this girl, and this girl, Olga Zabotkina. Oh no, she was her daughter, not granddaughter. She was her daughter. She was an actress, and she filmed. She she took part in several Soviet films, and she was quite famous. And that's just the photos of the ancestors of Olga Aleneva. And there is a photo of Alexander Rodiger, who was Russian Minister of War in early 1900s. And Alexander Rodiger lived in the apartment downstairs. His apartment was more than 10 rooms, and I think it was like 12 rooms or something like that. And his rent was covered by the state, and the state paid 7,500,000 rubles, whereas the average annual rent in St. Petersburg was only 3,000. A minister of war lived in this house. Huh? Downstairs. Yeah, in the most expensive apartment himself. Yeah. That was his wife, by the way. Just saying. Yeah. This is something, this kind of an old samovar left from the siege times. It worked on a gas. It was made well in the Soviet period, in the siege period, because people needed to cook food and keep warm, so they created all sorts of this makeshift DIY things just to survive. And also, Archil made a small gallery. He placed here um, old cutlery, kitchenware, and also old bricks that kind of surfaced during the restoration. I remember that room very well, and it's kind of still part of the apartment, right? So you see those doors. This is the door to the restroom. There is another bedroom that we didn't see. So, but here it's all for us. So it's kind of, what is it like to live in a museum in a way, or what is it like when you turn your apartment into a museum? Yeah, so a lot of different samovars, like Russian kettles, the thing, the sewing machine, the old lamps. Some of them, the old irons, so they are clearly the irons used before the revolution, old kitchenware. So Archil yeah, I mean, I don't know where he is now, so, but he was a big fan. And you see over there above my head, this is the wood for the fireplace. So they indeed used the fireplace. Yeah, it was really lovely. It was lovely to see that. That's something I did not really expect to see. That's Archil private collection. So Archil was always a big fan. And now, as a bonus, I'm going to show you what it was like to live in this house during the Soviet times, during the times of the communal apartments. And believe it or not, but there are still about from 60 to 80,000 communal apartments in St. Petersburg. That is a lot in the 21st century still. It's unimaginable. So we're now going to use again one of those galleries, and oh, again, we see stained glass. The stained glass which I was about to say, but then I got distracted for something else. There, a couple of years ago, there was this project, the volunteer restoration of stained glass. So this house also participated, and they were able to clean and restore some of the stained glass in the lobbies. Yeah, again, we can have a look at the courtyard. This is the unique courtyard, and we are now. This is what I filmed back in the day. So Alex, the guy who at least used to live in one of the apartments, he showed me a little bit around. I actually originally wasn't planning to show you the communal apartment, but then I had an idea like, okay, like why not? That would be great. So yeah, that's so I kind of filmed just short videos for myself and just just in case. And yeah, 3 years later, the time has come. These are the old wallpapers. This is the original ventilation. And by the way, Alex told me that the ventilation is still functioning smoothly, absolutely smoothly. And everything in the house, by the way, is still in a very good condition. So Yuli Bug didn't spare funds to build a house. Yeah. So what you see is you see that door, you see the wall right opposite the door. So the wall was not there. It used to be one big room. You can see that clearly by the design of the parquet floor. So, but during the Soviet time, they put this divider because there was another room. Because why would you need such a big apartment? Of course not. But it was a big, dense room. Well, you can see that this is just the decoration of the ceiling. Uh, well, it was a really big room. It wasn't it wasn't the cheapest apartment in the house. It was still quite close to the central part, but that's what they did to it in the Soviet times. You see, they just cut off part of the ceiling. They cut off part of the room to give it to someone else. That was a very common thing to do. That's exactly what they did all the time. And now this lady's head is the symbol of this house, of the community. Um, yeah, it's just nice. Another sample of the wallpapers. That's the bathroom. The floor is the original Natlach tile. The tiles on the wall are not original, but they're designed well to fit the floor. The bathtub. This is the photo I took back in 2022. It's just they were preparing the bathtub. It's the original bathtub. They were preparing it. It's not the original. It's the from the Soviet times. But Alex told me that they were preparing it for just to repaint it, in a special way, just to restore the Soviet bathtub. And then Misha told me that they did. So Misha said that the bathtub is white, and they were waiting, at least in summer, they were waiting for one of the apartments that still has the original bathtub. The original bathtub. They were hoping to give it or to sell it to this apartment, but I don't know what the situation is nowadays. And there was somebody's laundry soaking there. Yeah, that's what I filmed. There was even some kind of stained glass um, in the bathroom, and the stained glass and the window in the bathroom was absolutely essential because they wanted to add more light. So it obviously had some sort of a design, right? Just for it not to be transparent, but well, that nevertheless. So yeah, it's in a bad condition. Okay, let's put it mildly. But only one. You see that there are two windows because it's one is never enough. Just to ensure the warmth during winter, you always need the two frames. And this is the bedroom. This was the room where my friend Alex at least used to live. That's his bedroom, his only room. And he was going to take us to the apartment. So I think he wouldn't mind me showing that because he would have taken us there. And he lives in the in this room, and some of the furniture is absolutely original from this apartment. This, for example, this is the Meltzer furniture, which was, I would say, pretty average furniture to buy. You could buy it from a catalog, but Meltzer, I mean, Meltzer's also made customized furniture for Nicholas II and his library in the Winter Palace, for his uh, Alexander Palace, their permanent residence as of 1904, right? So, I mean, that was just an average furniture set back then that the Alex has in his room. But now it's kind of, you live in the communal apartment, but you still sit on the Meltzer sofa. Oh, wow. So capitalistic. Yeah. So that door is not, well, it used to be just an enfiladed room, like a chain of rooms connected to one another. But now there is a separate apartment there. So the door is sealed. There's nothing there. Also, Alex was able to restore the wallpaper design. I mean, this kind of a frieze, the original frieze, it was designed. It was, I mean, they made a copy of it. Again, that window has the original latch, as you can see, the original lock, and I remember it very well. So actually, two of them are original, but that one is painted over. And yes, the communal kitchen. Yes, every room has their own stove. Uh, because you need to know what you pay for, right? So every room has their own stove, and that's just the communal space, right? You can see that. And it used to be just one big kitchen for one apartment, but well, it is what it is. What can I say? It's huge. It's 40. Basically, the kitchen was of a size of an average one bedroom apartment. I mean, the square well, the area of a kitchen was like what now one bedroom apartments have, like one bedroom has. Yeah. So the kitchen was very big. One could actually live in the kitchen. So this is the black leather, or like the service leather. You see, there are no designs. There's no iron work, nothing, and the ceilings are very low. So yeah, and yeah, this is where we wrap this up. Another, it's a photo I took. Well, a lovely lady's head, right, from from that ceiling. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, I'll see you soon. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your support as well on my website. You can find some January tours already up, more tours. And thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Thanks for everything. Bye bye. And thank you for the tips, of course.